Hello and welcome to the Basin.
The Basin.
I don't have a voice for that today.
The Basin.
The Basin. I'm so excited that we are in season 2 of the Basin. Like the fact that we started out at the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
We have a lot going on, but we've made it this far. It's exciting, and I'm proud of us.
Yeah, I'm glad we're able to get to do this. And be consistent.
I'm even more excited and actually shocked. I don't know if I should be shocked, but I'm just like I feel grateful to God that people actually care about what we have to say.
No, it's always good to put things out there.
Yeah, you just put things out there, and then
sometimes you get to find like minds of people that you pique their interest.
And
some conversations are things that people need to hear, and sometimes it's good to say certain things that. You can draw from learning, you can draw from life experiences, you can draw from anything, but there's always something that it's always impactful to others. So I'm glad we're doing this, and I'm glad I'm doing this with you as well. So because it's so funny as a couple, how you realize that we can do a lot of things independently, but do things together as a couple. It's not as easy.
Not as easy, yeah. You have to be intentional about it, too.
There's a lot of things that you and I almost feels like it's a growing moment, or you almost feel like a marriage therapy as well.
On the podcast?
Because we have to amend like our style, our differences, what we like. And sometimes we have to get to a point of what are the things we want to talk about.
One thing that I feel like I'm not sure a lot of people know about us is the fact that, at least for me, I will summarize 2 key aspects of our lives as faith and politics, right? Faith in the aspect of our faith in Jesus, and politics in terms of the kind of conversations we always have around the house. And then when I think about it, I feel like those 2 themes are the 2 major themes that in culture people shy away from. We say don't talk about religion and politics. So I say faith intentionally. I didn't use religion because I feel like religion is a set of things that you do, right, based on your belief system. I say faith because I see faith as the values that runs my life and touches every aspect of what I do, how I think, beyond just the things you do, right? So I say faith and politics because that's a value system, what I place value on. And when I say politics, we think about like Democrats, Republican, but politics really touches culture. It touches your life. So I feel like when I think about these 2 topics, these 2 things that in culture you are asked, no bringing religion and politics. As we go into season 2, we've talked about this. In season 1, we didn't spend a lot of time on these 2 themes. But in season 2, we are planning to make this a heavy part, and not for the purpose of causing anybody to be offended or on edge. One thing that I feel like I say a lot, and I think I said it a few times in season 1, is I love the aspect of people having difficult conversations. In the last episode, we talked about how we need more people who are. You said an amazing quote the last episode. You were like, we need more people who are comfortable being uncomfortable. Right? We said it something like that. So I feel like when I think about this theme of faith and politics and culture and life, I feel like there is a need for us to have more conversations, difficult conversations about things that are really impacting our lives today. I mean, think about it. The reason why people watch politics is not because they want to argue or they want to be divided. I think these topics that are dealt with in politics are things that really affects our daily lives. That's why people are very passionate about it. In the same lens, the reason why there's so much division in the aspect of religion and faith, because it touches on things that affects our daily lives.
Yeah.
But the one thing that just I personally cannot understand is why these two amazing, important life themes is something that the culture says we should not talk about.
You should shy away from.
And I don't want to shy away from
Yeah.
it. I love to have difficult conversations with people who disagree with me because I feel like it gives me an opportunity to understand how they think, what makes them who they are, even if you disagree with me. What do you think?
No, there's a lot of truth to that. I do think that when we have difficult conversations with people, we get to the bottom of who they really are.
Exactly.
And a lot of times when you get to the bottom of who people really are, it's where you actually have a sense of depth. In your
Exactly.
relationship. So we see people regularly and you say, hey, you say hello, how are you? You hang out, you have coffee. And your conversation just always touch on the major thing. How's work? How's life? Let's talk about sport. I'm a Cardinal fan. I'm a supporting the Commanders, whatever. You talk about things that it's.
I call that fluff. I call that fluff. You do the fluffy conversation before you go into the real deal.
It's fun. It makes you feel comfortable. But a lot of times you really never get to know the depth of people because at the core of who we are political beings and we're religious beings. We're people of faith, right?
Yeah.
Do not use the word religious. Because for us, it goes beyond just religion. Faith means a lot more to who we are. And the best way to have depth with people is to know what drives them.
Exactly.
Is to know what their core values are.
Yeah.
And until you get to a point where you're comfortable with the core values of individuals, you never get to know what they are.
Exactly.
And it takes a lot too. And if the core value is you don't believe in anything, in God, that's your core value. That's your driving point. So a lot of relationships are superficial in the society we're in right now because the integral part of ourselves, we're not able to share it openly.
We're not. Isn't that crazy though?
Yeah.
The thing that really makes you who you are, the culture says don't talk about it.
Yeah.
Like the things that really makes you uncomfortable.
The thing that's just wired. That's the way we're wired.
Either comfortable or uncomfortable. You cannot talk about it.
Yeah.
It's like, why? And then when the outlet now comes for you to talk about it, that's where all the emotions that have been bottled up comes out and they sound offended.
Yeah.
But if you get an outlet to talk about it every day, unless, I keep saying this, we need to learn to agree to disagree sometimes. And I feel like when you have some of these tough, difficult conversations, you start to see that maybe we don't need to disagree.
Yeah.
Maybe there might be a lot more points where we agree than we disagree. I actually find that when I have conversations with people, difficult conversations, touchy conversations, and I give my listening ear, and me giving my listening ear, I'll give them the opportunity to give me their listening ear, right? And when we do that, we see more places where we agree than disagree. But then when you follow the culture and you just don't talk about it, automatically you assume, I mean, you and I have talked about this, right? I think I was even talking about this with a friend recently where there is this assumption, right, that if I meet someone who claims to be an atheist and lives a lifestyle that is totally different from the lifestyle that I live as a Christian, there's the assumption that the moment I tell this person that I'm a Christian, there is a wall that has been built up. And I was asking this friend, I was like, why is there a wall just because I tell you I'm a Christian?
Yeah.
Because there's the there's the other assumption that by me saying I'm a Christian, you think I'm judging you.
Yeah.
But the flip side is the case. I also think that by me telling you I'm a Christian,
you're judging me.
I think you're judging me automatically.
Yeah.
That I have some So it's just those things that I feel like if in our culture we spend so much time avoiding these two key themes, it creates more divide. But I strongly believe that if we address these two key themes from a place of open dialogue and respect and kindness, there is no argument here. I'm not here to attack anyone. I'm just here to share my views, and I want to hear points of views on it. It's actually really good.
Yeah, it's becoming very difficult to have a lot of those crucial conversations. I mean, you can even go back to like back in the Hellenistic age or Greek age, where we talk about open conversations and open dialogue, and where people share their differences and opinions, and you come to a consensus based on those differences. But in our society today, it's very difficult because everything has become personal.
Everything is so personal. Oh my goodness.
So people cannot remove themselves from situations, from issues, from politics, from politicians. They see themselves through it. Because they see themselves through it, it's become a very sensitive, personal conversation. And a lot of times it's really not that, it's not that
It's
deep.
not that deep. And it's really not personal.
But unfortunately people have personal experiences and they see themselves through it. It's kind of like a few years ago, right, talking about politics, like I was on social media and people, so I mean, definitely a few years ago we went through the pandemic and there were a lot of upheavals in our society, like with everything going on with Black Lives Matter. And one of the things I was doing online was I was just responding to somebody online. So I usually I kind of post as it goes. I don't put my photo. I just post as a random person. And I got into a conversation with the lady and about the whole thing that's going on. And I was sharing my view of what I think about Black Lives Matter. And I was just being honest. And I just there's a lot of things that do not make sense. There's some things I just do not agree with. And also my understanding of just how civil rights in America has been, the people who are leading them, they have some core values and principles that is driving them, and I don't see those core values leading this group. But I was responding to her, and she was just going on, and she was responding to me in such a way no, what you're saying is you don't really understand what's going on. You guys can see me, right? Obviously you can hear from how I talk, you can hear from how I look. So the person was like, "Nah, you cannot be a black dude. You gotta be a white guy." And I was
There's no way you would think like this if you're a black guy.
No, it was crazy. It was crazy though. So I was responding, and she was like, "Nah, you're pretending to be black, but there's no way you can be a black guy," and this and that. But interestingly, I wanted to hear what she was trying to say, and I was like, okay, and everything comes down to really personal stories.
Yeah.
And she was talking about, this is, my husband works in a firm and has been in a firm for 10 years. He has a master's degree. He's a successful guy. He's done very well, but in his career, there's been younger, Caucasians that have come in a short period of time. They would just get promoted. Mm-hmm. And they're not as educated. Mm-hmm. They're not being there for that long.
Yeah.
And they get promoted. And it becomes a personal story. And a lot of times I take a step back and realize that when people are that forceful or that they're passionate, sometimes the aspect of my faith, and when I talk about faith, we believers in Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
That's the core who we are.
Yeah.
And one of the values that we care about is empathy and listening. Understanding that was kind of like, okay, let me listen to her point of view. What exactly she's trying to say? Where exactly So there's a personal story that people are trying to bring on. And sometimes the personal story might not be the reflection of what exactly is driving the whole movement. Sometimes the movement is hijacking personal individuals.
Exactly.
And sometimes individuals think that this politician cares about their interest. And they're saying, hate this person, so let's come together. Let's package ourselves, and that will be your voice. A politician is really somebody who's going after their own interest. So if you're going to put personal feelings to it, then you have to ask your question about what's the resolution, to what you care about. So you got to also think about yourself. But a lot of times it almost feels like sometimes people want to vent, but they really don't want solution. And people are hijacking people's emotions and sentiments to achieve their political gain.
I think you just hit the nail on the head. People are hijacking people's emotions and genuine hurt and use that for their own personal and political agenda. What you just said, the example of a woman whose husband has a PhD, a master's degree, he has tons of work experience, right? And then a young Caucasian or Hispanic or mixed, whoever, a person of a different culture comes in who has more relationship and uses that relationship that they have in the company to grow through the ranks while this other person is, that's a valid issue, right? But if you use that one personal experience, right, to say because this person looks like me, I believe that this person is going to have my back.
And they're in my best interest.
And have my best interest without taking time to understand what does this person stand for.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And does this person, what they stand for, does it align with who I am as a person and the change I want to see in this nation? Yeah. That's where I feel like makes me sad, right? Because personally, I don't care where you are on the spectrum of like your political view, right? I have my values. That's where faith comes in. That makes me who I am as a person. And that value, as a Christian, I have a biblical worldview, right?
Which is the foundation.
Is the foundation of everything
else. That's our starting point.
That's my starting point. My biblical worldview is my starting point. And then when I look into the candidates running, I ask myself, of these two options, which one aligns more with what I believe? And which one aligns less with what I believe, right? And I would like everyone to be doing the same thing versus going off of the emotion. Personally, though, you know how I am, right? I feel like your emotions typically steers you wrong. Especially when it's a heated emotion.
You gotta be careful. That's why we talk about what guides your worldview. So I think you have to first understand what has shaped your worldview. What do you think the way you think? And from and how do you measure up what you believe as validate? Is this the truth or what? And sometimes for us, as we talk about biblical worldview, for those who know about biblical worldview, and you love your mom and you love your dad. Sometimes you hold on to what they say and they become your foundation of what truth is. So if your mom is saying and have a terrible marriage, and then the parents, the dad wasn't the best example, and she tells you as a woman, in a kind and in a, for good reasons, she tells you, I want you to stand on your feet, but don't let any man take you for granted, and she might mean something well, but the child or the person you're telling is taking it in a different way to a different level. And she's owning up on it and saying, I'm not going to let any man do this. I'm not going to let any man, to the point where sometimes the gift of femininity that God has given you, you're trying to kind of extol it, to remove it out of, you want to decapacitate that part of you that makes you who you are because you don't want to be taken for granted. Obviously, yes, maybe the people you loved have experienced some really bad stuff. But you also have to, there's a lot of grace, and we all need grace in our lives. And I think sometimes it's being able to manage your emotions and think like, what keeps you in check as an individual? Because yes, you had this bad experience. And it feels like nobody will fully understand what you went through. But is there a justification for certain behaviors or how we see lives, or how we talk about certain people? Because every person has a story. I've told you before, and there was a time I put a quote on Facebook and I shared them they said it's a woman's world, it's a man's world, but the reality is like I grew up with a lot of women around me, and then there's no way they, in my own eyes, looked like they were deprived. I felt like I was deprived, So it's all perspective, and a lot of times we tend to only know perspective, and perspective gets strong when there's a larger population of people that share those collective sentiment. And people feel more empowered, like what I feel is justified because so many other people feel that same way. And they're open about it.
As you were speaking, right, the one thought that was just running through my mind over and over again is that hurt people hurt people. Our society, babe, is filled with so many hurt people.
So many broken
hurt
people.
And broken. Even if they want to admit it or not. Filled with people who have father wounds, people who have just hurt by the church.
By the church.
Those who are leaving the church, they are hurt by the church. I can't hear the amount of stories of I heard like this priest and this person abused, and just verbal abuse. So the society is filled with so many hurt people, and from that hurt, decisions are being made. And this cycle of hurt is continuing and continuing. And at what point do we stand up and say, I will not make a decision from a place of hurt? Someone has to say, you know what, enough is enough with this cycle of pain.